Hello, thank you. It's great to be here. Tom's done the introduction very nicely, so I don't need to add much research, planning, design, advertising, integrated, work a little bit with Tom, some other folk around the world. I clearly am inept because Tim had his Twitter thing and you were all about Twitter, and I haven't even got my Twitter thing up here. See Barnett if you're interested. Don't think that Don't think that the architects is not about the normal kind of architects that we get in this world. It's a different kind of architects, so don't get confused with architects that you're used to saying in digital proceedings. We'll come back to that in a minute. And what I'm going to talk about is pretty much a bastardized version of an article I wrote, and it was published in June, Market Leader. It clearly wasn't very good because I didn't put my name on the front or the name of the article. But if you're interested, it's in there somewhere. Right, the origins of this article, or this paper, were when I was the strategy director at Coley Porter Bell, which is a brand design company. And we went to a meeting, and the head of Ogilvy UK, which was the company which kind of owned or Coley Porter Bell reported to, got us all together and said, we want more revenue out of you branding people in the digital space, because that's where the growth is. We want more money from you. And I said, like a good strategist would, well, I think the first thing is to have a point of view about the market. And he looked at me, that isn't him, but it might as well have been. He looked at me and said, well, what is it? And I hadn't really thought about this before. And in some kind of mad John Cleese, how can I make it up on the spur of the moment way, I said, I think there's some gap between what we're capable of doing technologically and what's currently happening. And he said, that's very interesting. Now talk about it some more. So I kind of flayed around a bit, and something like this came out. Right, let's see. I think that technologically we can do amazing things. And yet when we get to the world of retail and shopping and online transactions, we're pretty poo. But I looked at that and I thought, well, there's a load of technology here, and it reminds me in some bizarre way of that. You see the thing? I mean, it's kind of like there's a kind of first-person view on what's going on. And wouldn't it be cool, I was thinking in the spur of the moment, trying to answer this guy in a very fast way, wouldn't it be cool if our supermarket experiences online in some way could replicate, you know, the kind of excitement, I mean, it may not be the right word, but in some way could replicate the excitement that we can create through technology. Wouldn't that be cool? And what do we get? That's what we get. And it's really rubbish. It's really rubbish. And I've chosen, Tom said, no, you don't want that other silly chart. I put a chart in here. I did originally go to the Tesco website and put in crisps. And I got an Apple Mac come up. And I'm thinking, why on earth did I get crisps and an Apple Mac? Probably to do with apples and I don't know. But I mean, it's not just useless looking. It's some of it's just useless as well. And I thought crisps would be quite an interesting brand space to go look at, right? You've got Phileas Fogg, you've got McCoy's, you've got the Pringles chap. You know, look, I heard yesterday that the guy who invented Pringles was buried in a Pringles coffin, and I really did hear that. We had a debate about how sad is that. Anyway, so you'd have thought crisps would be quite an interesting brand place to go. There's lots of stuff going on, brand personalities, lots of kind of branding things. But it's such a bad experience. And from a branding perspective, it's so bad. It got me thinking, because now I don't know whether the supermarkets are saying, well, because you shop with us, because Tesco say, well, you shop with us in the real world because it's kind of the location's convenient. Well, the location isn't it's not an issue, it's not a variable when you're shopping online. So because you're shopping with us in Tesco in the real world, does that mean that you're tethered to shopping with Tesco online? Well, perhaps if you have a loyalty card, you might be. But even then, you can shop at Sainsbury's online and get your loyalty card, you know, through Sainsbury's for your online shopping, and you can go to Tesco's and you can shop for real at Tesco's with your own for real loyalty card. So I'm not sure why there'd be any reason why you'd shop online with the same brand that you're shopping with for real. And you know, then you're thinking, well, perhaps if the experience was more interesting, or at least you had the option, a button which was interesting experience, please, or just a really boring normal one, because I'm busy and I've got kids hanging off my back, you know, then perhaps some people would choose the interesting experience one, because at least it might be more interesting than that. And I wonder if it's to do with kind of some legacy thing where the first into market, it was just functionality. You know, it was just, let's get it built. Ah, that's the title of my thing, isn't it? So let's just get it built, and then we'll deal with that. We'll deal with all the other stuff later on. So I don't know, that's what my talk's about today. And I think we can do better than that. I think I've got some other... these people do better, don't they? Because that whole first-person thing that happens in video games and doesn't happen in the supermarket shopping, it happens here. I mean, this has been going, what, 3 or 4 years I've been doing this? And imagine, you know, if you had the option of going down, you know, all they've got to do is take a little camera, a little 360 camera, and every night go around the aisles and do that, right? And then you plug it up online, and you go, right, well, a few people are going to give it a go, right? They'll give it a go. Well, I would give it a go. Who would give it a go? You'd give it a go for once, all right? And at least it's a kind of interesting brand interaction. These guys can do it on a much kind of lesser scale. Perhaps some of the stores could do it as well. I've got to go back over here now, sorry. All right. Now, here's another example, and thanks, Phil's not here, but thanks to Phil at Foolproof. This is a still from a PlayStation game, PlayStation 3 game, and it's, I mean, I presume it's not pixelated or broken. It's fantastic quality. And then we look at the PlayStation online store, and you'd have thought, okay, we can forgive the supermarkets for being a bit, you know, sluggish here, but PlayStation should really be leading edge online retail purchase thing. And I'm really sorry, right? You know, the amount of energy they put into the gaming experience, put it like 100% into your, because they're going to make money out of this. Isn't this the way you make your money, I'd have thought? So why can't they make this better? Oh, Phil is here. Thank you, Phil. Thank you for, these are Phil's slides. Sorry, I didn't see you. Thank you. And then I thought, well, I'll go and look at some airlines. It can't just be this category. Let's go and look at some airlines, like where you like banks and travel agents and other places where you go buy things online, right? So it's not just the Facebook coupon thing. It's kind of some serious stuff. And I thought, I'll go to Virgin Atlantic because they are a differentiated brand. We all think, I mean, I hope we all think, I mean, their history, I used to work in the agency which did the advertising and did some work with them. They're great, right? And they're very determined to be different and fresh, and they've got a whole history of doing that stuff. And then you go, what is this? You know, it's so not fresh or different. It doesn't give you a sense of the experience in any means whatsoever. And I thought, well, I'll have a look at the other ones just to check. And so I checked the other ones. I mean, that's probably the best. It's really not terribly good, right? And I don't know whether people, I presume they've done the research. I presume they've said people go to these websites to buy stuff. But I'm not sure I go to any of these sites to buy stuff initially. Sometimes I just go and have a look around a little bit, or you know, there's a bit of a price-brand trade-off when I fly, or perhaps I go to Expedia to actually, you know, do the final buying. But I may go to the brand sites to have a little kind of shimmy around. So I don't think this works for me. I don't think any of the previous one works for me. And I don't think the Virgin Atlantic one works for Virgin Atlantic, because I think it undermines a lot of all that good stuff they do out there. Then you go onto the site and I just think it's a bit disappointing. Right, so that's me talking at a macro level. I'm going to talk a little bit at a well, not micro level, but a bit more kind of tactical, I guess, would be the way to phrase it. Because this is really this is serious. You know, you've got to do a whole lot of stuff here to make this work better. Sorry. Oh, that's JetBlue. Now, JetBlue are meant to be, I don't know if you know JetBlue. JetBlue are very cool. In the States, they are the Virgins of States. They built this whole fantastic terminal at JFK. Shame they didn't do something with the website. Tesco, right, so this is a bit of, now I'm going to switch from kind of macro to a bit more executional. You haven't got to do a great big kind of revamp of everything to make some executional changes which are a bit more ownable, a bit better branded, a bit more entertaining, a bit more friendly from an experiential way. When I was thinking about this paper, I started looking, I don't know why, but this logo came to mind. We'd all know this logo. And these little bars across the bottom, the part of the logo, they reminded me like that down thing when things download and you get those kind of diagonal bars coming across. I'm going, wow, that's a nice little brand equity. When you're waiting for Tesco on the site for something to happen, why haven't you got some kind of interesting little eye-catching thing? Perhaps they could use these little diagonal brand equities in a dynamic way online, just to show that they're interested, if nothing else, right? Because you're thinking about the media you're operating in, and we've given 2.0 and everything. We've got a dynamic media. So why can't we be a bit more dynamic with our branding here? So, and that's a great example. And there's lots of other examples where you can do. When I worked in Cody's, we did the skin for the Demos website, and we skinned the top of the frame, and I'll come back to that in a minute. And in the skinning of it, we tried to make the little drop downs a bit more branded, the transitions a bit more branded. There's lots of little places where you can pop in little bits of kind of ownable, brandable stuff. And if you start thinking about how does a brand behave, and how could a brand behave online? You know, what are the little noises, the little characteristics? How does the movement work? How do things move? How do the equities move? And no one is doing this stuff. Because I spoke to a lot of people thinking, this is pretty obvious what I'm thinking. It's pretty obvious. But no one seems to be doing it. And all the people I spoke to were like, no, I haven't heard of that before. I don't know whether you guys are thinking about it, but if not, then do, right? Because I think it's easy stuff. Some of this stuff is really relatively easy wins. What else have we got? Coke's another example. I mean, I just put Coke advertising in, and I'm sorry it's a bit crappy on the PowerPoint thing, but I try to get decent pixelation quality. But this stuff is all around the world. It's global. It's a really interesting kind of an iconic treatment. They can apply it to different parts of the brand. It's not just the Coke brand. They can apply it to Zero, I guess, and to Diet as well. Really interesting, but really flexible. Loads of different occasions. Great. You'd have thought fantastically interesting and dynamic for a dynamic web context. Global Coca-Cola website. I'm really disappointed. Biggest brand in the world. I mean, sure, if we went online, you'd see the title thing switch out every 5 seconds, and you get something else come on. But I really feel they're missing a trick here. They could be using that icon or something else to make it a lot more interesting and make the experience more interesting, more branded, and just not rely upon the same old that everyone else is. No, that's the UK site. I mean, good for them. Greener bottles. Terribly sorry. Put it in an ad. It's an advertising. It should be an ad, right? Put it in an ad somewhere or print ad and explain it. But I just feel the home of the thing, the brand in the UK, should be a bit more interesting than that. I don't even need to comment now, do I? I mean, this is... Come on, Google. You can do better than this. You've got a great brand. And my wallet's more... Why would I choose my interesting wallet with loads of stuff in and go for that instead? I mean, yeah. You with me? I don't know. Do you agree? Yeah. Well, not really. I'm trying, all right? So this is the builders to architects thing, right? I found myself, but perhaps it's because I was in a design company, and I was trying to explain this to people, and I hadn't really articulated it properly. And the best way for me to explain it was to talk about builders and architects. That was the way I explained this to people. So I thought I'd try it on you guys as well. You probably got it already, but when we start, this is a Paleolithic hut, right? And when we first started building things, when man first started building, it was terribly functional. There's not a lot of aesthetic in that. It's I want to be protected. I want to get out of the rain or the snow. I want to get in the shade or the sun. I need a hole for the smoke. It's very, very basic. There's not a lot of kind of vision going on here. This is a step in the right direction. It's a modern house, but it really is just it's really a replica of a Neolithic house, right? This is from the Middle East, and this is a similar age from the Northern Europe. It's terribly functional. If I had longer, I'd talk to you about why it's as it is, but it's you see what I'm, right? This is the first time that we get, I'm sure the Egyptians knew what they were doing here, but this is the first time we see written down anything more than just function in building. And it's Vitruvius, I think is the name of the Roman guy, and he says a building needs to have durability, usability, and beauty. So now we're beginning to see in the history of architecture, we're beginning to see something which is a bit more aesthetic, a bit more think about it and how it looks in the context perhaps of its surroundings, rather than just a functional need. And then we get, I guess, architecture's history of rock, equivalent of rock and roll. Brunelleschi's dome, Brunelleschi, architect, kind of rock and roll hero. Now we have an architect, not just a builder. We have someone who comes before the builders, and the architect can lay out a vision, knows how to do building, knows how to instruct builders to build, knows about stresses in building and all that sort of stuff, but has something else, which is a bigger vision about how a building should look, how it should be, how it should sit in context in its surroundings. And when you I'm not an architect, but I know a few, and I know some urban planners. And that is really, that's the big conversation. The actual physical building of it is a different gig altogether, and it's kind of somewhere down the food chain. I'm sorry if you're any builders here. And I think that the web really needs some when I say the web needs architects, I mean in this way. I don't mean in the normal way, I mean in this way. Some visionary people who are going to create some big thinking, brandy stuff and go build it, right? What seems to happen is that there's a lot of building going on, and someone at the end says, put some nice colours on top of it. And that seems to me, particularly from a brand perspective, completely the wrong way around. Think about the experience, think about the brand, and then go build, not build it and say, what colours can we have, please? And I've tried this a couple of times, and the people who build these things, I mean, actually, Coley's went through a process of redoing its website when it's at the tail end of my time there. And I said, is my hypothesis playing? I said, yeah. People come along and say, you can have this template, that template, or that template. And I said, well, can't you just say, can we have what we want, please? And they said, oh, no, you can say this one. Now, I don't know how true that is. I really don't know. But my experience of my own little website, it seems to bear fruit, right? I know, I want something different. No, you can't have it. Well, I do. Well, you've got to pay. Well, I'll pay a bit. Right, this is the first ever website, web page. I'm sure you recognise it. It reminds me of that building, the Paleolithic hut function only. This is the next iteration on. It's got something else going on, but not much more. It's still terribly functional. This is, I think, Microsoft's one of their first. We've got colours, and we've got some sense of image. I'm not sure you'd call it design. Yet, but it's a step to. I've got a couple of examples of what I mean in a minute. But you'd have thought with the technology available we could do better. All right. Now let's see if this works. I've got two examples of. I haven't searched high and low. I've been a bit busy, but I had a little look around. This, if I can make it work, is what I think is an example of. The Tesco thing I called out with the little. Why don't you use something more executional to keep people a bit interested? This is an ad agency in London, and let's see if I can. How do I do this? Do I just click on it? I think. No, it's not going to work. I just talked to you about it. It's adamandEveLondon.com, and I've managed to get a screen grab. Probably too long to go in and out and do all the stuff. And this is just a script. This is what you get while you're waiting, right? While you're waiting, it says, look at Tom and Friends while you wait for the page. Now, it's not a big deal, right? But it's something to keep me a little bit more interested. It tells me something about the brand. I just feel a little bit more familiar with it. Something's going on which I can relate to, and I'm amused by. And if you click on any of like the work or the clients or the us, or this thing will fly in from the left or the right, stop, and it will just hang around for a bit and then move off somewhere else. Now, there's lots of this going on, but it just seems, why can't some of these other brands do something like this? And this is Louis Vuitton. And if you go to it, and this is Angelina Jolie and Louis Vuitton. If you go to it, up on this hand side, the right-hand side as you look, up pops a bar. You click on it, you go to the E space, and at least in the E space, things are happening, right? There's movement, there's dynamism, there's lighting. It's not fantastic, but it's a darn sight better than any of the airlines and what the supermarkets are doing. Now, sure, you go, oh, it's Louis Vuitton. They've got bags of money. Pun intended. They've got bags of money. And I go, for sure they have, right? But it's not like the supermarkets don't have bags of money, right? They're probably richer as, they could try. They could give you an option to do it. And so this is for a branding person, this is great. And I don't see a lot of brands doing anything, well, they're not even brands online. They're just transacting things. And I don't see a lot of this kind of adventure or this kind of daring or this kind of courage in the web space terribly often. So you try it. Go to the e-shopping and have a look around. It's a bit better than what I've been. It's not all the way, but at least it's an effort. And I think that is me. So yes, that's a kind of plea to have some architects and some vision, and rather than builders in here. Right. Okay. Thanks.